how to save money in the garden. If you want to learn some tips and tricks on how I save money when I garden, let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, of course, is buying your plants from seed. When you buy your plants from seed, you're saving a lot of money. Of course, it does take more time for your plants to get established, whether you're buying an annual or a perennial, but the payoff is fantastic. But as long as you have a little bit of patience, it is well worth it because it is so much fun to grow things from seeds. You can actually take the seed head after it dries, and you can either save the seeds for the next season, or you could, if it's a cool weather annual, like for instance a snapdragon or a cleome, you could take those seed heads, sprinkle them on the ground, and you will have a plant come up the next season. Let's go ahead and take a look at how I collect my seeds this time of year in late summer, and how I sprinkle them throughout the ground, or how I save them in brown paper bags for the next season. The first seed that I am going to show you how I collect and how I also sprinkle it in the ground for next year is feverfew. Earlier in the spring, I went through and I just took packets of seeds and I threw them on the ground all over the place, hoping to get some flowers to pop. And I got some. First thing is feverfew. This is adorable. You can see that I have a clump right here that is still in bloom, but I have a clump that is ready to be harvested. Here are the little seed heads. They're so cute. And I'm going to do two things. I'm going to save some of the seeds, but I'm also going to sprinkle some of the seeds back in the ground. I went to the grocery store and I picked up brown lunch paper bags. Don't forget to mark what the seed is. You think you'll remember, but you won't. So I'm going to throw most of these into this bag and let them dry inside, and then I will harvest and separate the seeds when it gets really cold out and I can't play outside in the garden. I'm going to take and just sprinkle this feverfew all over this area. Feverfew is a cool weather annual, so that means that even though it is the very beginning of September, I'm going to sprinkle these seedlings around. They're going to hopefully root in, and some will pop up the next year. I'm going to throw the rest of the leaves back into the garden to compost out. Then I'm going to close this up, take it inside, and store it in a cool, dry place until the seeds have completely dried. Next up, of course, is coneflower. This is one of the easiest plants to grow from seed. In fact, this plant did come from seed, and I just keep taking these seed heads once they dry. I cut them. All of this is all little seed heads. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to take these seeds and I'm just going to break up the seed head a little bit and sprinkle the seeds around. Then I'm going to throw the rest of the head down into the ground. That's going to self-seed itself. I'm going to get a ton of plants next year from what I just did. I'm not going to do any more because these do tend to spread. The birds and the wind do knock these seeds around quite a lot, so they will pop up all over my property, but that's okay. I can move them where I want them if they grow in a place that I wish they wouldn't. So that is the second plant that I wanted to show you, how you can save money by taking a seed head and sprinkling it around and letting it do its thing. You might be wondering, where can you buy these seeds from? Of course, any box store, even the Dollar General, has a great seed selection in the spring of each year. I like to buy most of my seeds, and this is not sponsored, this is just where I purchase my seeds, from johnnyseeds.com. They have a great variety, great pictures, and when I do place an order, I get the seeds pretty much right away. There's not a long wait time. I did get this Cosmo from Johnny Seeds, And this plant actually reseeded itself here from last year. I had Cosmos planted here last year, and now I have Cosmos again. I do see a couple of seed heads that are dry enough for me to pull from. Let me go ahead and pull them, and then I'll show you up close. This is what the seeds head look like from the Cosmos. Now, what I'm going to do is I am not going to take this little batch and save it in a paper bag. I'm actually going to take this and sprinkle these directly into the garden bed. I'm thinking I want the plants right here in this section. I'm just going to crumple up the seed head and sprinkle those seeds all over. Oh yeah. This is going to be nice next year. And then we'll just sprinkle them in there, and we will let those Cosmos go to town. That is going to be so pretty next year. Okay, I am at my zinnia seeds right now, and I do want to collect these and store these in a paper bag. Second way that I save money when I garden is by propagation. Now, we do have to be careful due to trademark laws. We don't want to, propagate something and sell it. There's a whole bunch of information online. I'm not going to get into details, but there are a couple of plants that I do want to propagate this year so I can have more in the following years. Now, one of the plants was given to me by a friend, and it actually was from a propagation from her garden. So I want to create a whole bunch more of that specific shrub, and I don't know what the name of the shrub is, but I want to go ahead and propagate and get all those started so they can overwinter outside in a secure area that doesn't get too cold, but is still going to get enough moisture. You can do shrubs, you can do roses, which I have done as well. You can do boxwoods. They're a great thing to propagate, especially if you like to do little tabletop topiaries. Propagating boxwoods is the way to go. So let's go ahead and take a look at how I propagate some of my plants. To propagate, I'm going to use just a little bit of potting mix in these two containers. I'm going to fill these containers up with the soil, and then I'm going to go around and take some cuttings. The first plant that I am going to propagate is a boxwood, and I want to make sure that I'm getting a long stem with a couple of leaves at the top. Okay, that should be good. Okay, this is the shrub that was given to me years ago, and it came from a little cutting. So hopefully you can see me. I want to cut some more off and propagate and have some more of these shrubs. Okay, so this is how I propagate. Now, propagation is definitely, it's not a guarantee that the plant is going to come back. Just keep that in mind. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to strip leaves. Not using any rooting hormone because I don't feel like it. I'm doing a little bit of a cut up the very bottom of the stem. And then I'm going to shove this way down in the dirt. Way, way down. And then I'm just going to repeat that process. And splitting the end of the shrub it's to help with the water wicking up into the root. Again, hit or miss. I've had great success. That's why you always do a couple, not just one. I'm doing 5 in this one container. And out of 5, maybe one will take. I don't know. Let's just throw this little guy in here, just cuz. So this is going to stay in a shady spot. And honestly, I'm just going to put it in a semi-protected area outside, and I'm going to let it overwinter, and I'm probably not going to touch it at all and see what comes back in the spring. It's always fun to just play. Okay, boxwood time. Same thing. I'm going to go to where the leaves are, or where the twigs are separated. I'm going to strip off the bottom leaves. And I probably won't be able to do an X, but I might be able to just do a little snip up the bottom. And then I'm going to shove this all the way down into the dirt. The dirt is going up to the base of the stem where the leaves start. Just slicing the bottom just a little bit. And then I'm going to bury it up to here. And you could pack these close together. And how cute would it be to have a whole little table top display of little baby boxwoods that you propagated. For every time I look at these bad boys next year, the ones that take, I'm going to be so excited. Be like, I did that. Look at what I did. And if none of these take, if nothing else, I am getting outside, I'm getting a little bit of fresh air, I'm playing in the garden, I'm piddling around, and sometimes even when things don't go your way in the garden, if these do not actually propagate, that's okay because I had fun. I was able to get outside a little bit. My FTJ, full-time job, has been quite hectic this week. So it is okay for me to just sit out here, strip leaves, and do just a little bit of play. And this soil is wet, so I'm not even going to water it. It's supposed to rain in a couple days. So, okay, it is as easy as that. There is a rooting hormone that you can buy. It's a powder. And when you're doing this situation where you're cutting, and you're propagating, you dip the stem into the rooting hormone, and that does stimulate growth. It does work. I've also heard that using straight up cinnamon works as a good root hormone. I'm not using any of that. I have, but I'm not this time. I'm sure I have some somewhere, but I just don't feel like digging for it. So the third way that I save money in the garden is by dividing my perennials. Every couple of years when you buy a flowering perennial, let's just say a Shasta daisy. This is a plant that I had grown from seed. So I'm going to go through where I plopped all of those little bunches of Shasta daisies. I'm going to give them a aggressive dividing, and I'm going to place them throughout the property, probably mostly down in the shed bed. Let's go ahead and I will show you how I divide my Shasta daisies. Right here is a very large clump of Shasta daisies that I did winter sow from seeds, and I will have a video on winter sowing coming up in the winter time. These definitely do need to be divided. I'm going to be very aggressive with this plant. I'm not going to dig the whole thing up, split it up. I'm not doing that. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come into a corner of this plant, and I'm going to go right into the root ball, and I'm just going to take a chunk out, and then I'm going to fill it back in with dirt. This plant will be fine. The piece that we're taking out for division is going to be just fine. We're going to go ahead and plant it down in the shed area. So again, if you're nervous about doing this, you can dig the whole plant up, use your shovel, divide it however you want. I'm not doing that. I'm being aggressive. Ooh, that's hard digging. I have a plant division. Let me tamp in this ground. I have a little bit of extra mulch and soil here, so no big deal. Okay, let's take this chunkaroo down to the shed bed. And I wanted to show you the root ball. And if I wanted to divide this again, I could easily take the shovel and divide it. Sometimes you can actually pull away. Oh, there we go. See? There's a clump. All right, next up in how I save money, this is tip number 4. I buy my plants on clearance. I go to my local box store or my local garden center and I buy plants that are in the discount section. Now, these are usually plants that have gone past their prime. They're looking a little rough. They might have been cut back, just like this example right here. This is a Shasta daisy. So when it was full price, it was in full bloom. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then those blooms started to fade. So the garden center had to do a cutback of the blooms. And then this was on sale. So I got this plant 50% off. It was $14. This is a Proven Winners Daisy Banana Cream. And I got it for $7. Here is another good example. This is a yarrow, and as you can see, it's looking not fantastic. Now, these seed heads, this is a sterile plant, so pulling these seed heads and sprinkling them on the ground, it's not going to do anything because it's a sterile plant. It's not meant to reproduce through the seeds. It's meant to be a blooming plant, not a propagating plant. So, this is Firefly Peach Sky. I can zoom in on that picture. And again, I got this 50% off. This was $11, so I got it for $5.50. And the blooms are totally dead on it, but all I have to do when I plop this in the ground is trim off these stalks. If I want to clean up the dead foliage, I can do that. It will be just fine. It's going to grow back next season like nothing was ever wrong with it. I can tell you that the majority of our raised garden bed going down the hill, the majority of the plants in the raised garden beds are all sale plants. There was no way I could afford to buy all those plants at full price, so I hit the clearance section really frequently and really hard at the local garden center last year to get all the plants that I have in these flower beds. And this year they all came back beautifully. You cannot even tell that they were not in their prime when I purchased them and put them in the ground. Remember, plants want to live. They don't want to die. They're meant to live. So if you are giving them water while they're in the containers, you want to make sure you're watering them every day because, again, this is a small container. It dries out very easily. Once we get it in the ground, we won't have to water it as much, especially with the fall rains that come through central Pennsylvania, which is where I live. But yeah, buying these plants on sale from the clearance section is a game changer. I started hitting the clearance section up last year, and now I am hooked. I go right to the clearance section, no matter if it's a box store or if it's the local garden center. When you go to a garden center, you can have the same plant in 3 different size containers. Of course, the smallest is going to be the least expensive up to the most expensive. So a bonus tip that I have for you is buy smaller. You can actually buy more plants for the same amount of money. You can space them out and get more of your garden filled up with plants, even though you are purchasing a smaller plant to begin with. The reason that plants are more expensive, not only because they're bigger, the garden centers have to hold these plants over year after year after year if they don't sell. And that costs money, that costs time, that costs space, that costs water, you know, all the things. So you're going to save money buying smaller as opposed to buying one big plant. So let's say if you are starting a brand new garden, you're going to want to spend your money on one or two really good statement structure plants, whether that be an evergreen or a larger shrub of some sort or a larger tree if you can afford it. And then around that area, that's where you can buy the smaller containers, and you can dot and fill in all the empty sections with all the smaller containers. You can plant them all a little bit closer together than what you should. And then it will, within a couple years, create a full, complete, lush garden. It is always good to spend your money on the statement pieces and be a little more thrifty on your everyday perennials. I hope that these tips and tricks have been helpful for you, and I hope that you learned a little something. If you like this content, please click the thumbs up button to let YouTube know that this is good content to share with others. And please leave a comment below on how you like to save money in the garden. I would love to hear your ideas, because I'm sure there are so many more ideas than what I provided in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.